Guys, I'm trying to make a decision. I have these 3 planners, and over the course of the last several years I've used all 3, and I'm getting ready to set up a new planner starting in September, mainly because the planner that I'm in right now, this one, we're getting close to the end, and the pages are starting to come up when I'm writing on them, and just for various reasons, it's time to go into a new planner for me. So, this is a composition notebook that I got from Target for 50 cents. This is an Exceed brand A5 dotted journal that I got from Walmart for about $9. And this is a Moleskine extended standard size extra large journal with grid. So whenever I have a decision like this to make, I'm kind of a nerd, and I try to do it logically, because if I used my emotions, I would just keep all 3 and I would do a layout in each one every week, and that would just be the end of it, because I would not be able to decide. So what I do is I make a list. So this list is based on the things that I like about each notebook. This M is for Moleskine, the E is for Exceed, and C is for composition book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this list, and I'm going to look at the 3 notebooks, and I'm going to compare, and then at the end I will add up the totals, and I will decide what I'm going to do. Okay, so what I do is I rank each thing, each type of notebook, by the category. Okay, so pages numbered. The Moleskine's pages are not numbered, so I'm going to go with 3 for the Exceed, because 3 is the most, and yes, they are numbered. And the composition book is a 1, because neither of these are numbered, but I prefer to use this one over this one because it has more pages. So you see what I'm doing there? I'm just kind of ranking. 1 is least, 3 is most, the 3 journals compared to in terms of page numbers, okay? The most pages, again, the Moleskine has the most pages, and then comes the Exceed, and then the composition book. The Moleskine has 400 pages. It's very thick. This particular one I used about a year and a half ago, and the reason I quit using it was because I was starting a job and I needed a bigger planner with more space. And my kids were busier, and we had more activities, and it was just, I had more people living in my house and more people to keep track of. I have quite a few less activities and less people to deal with right now. So size of the book in that respect is no longer as big of an issue. So this one has 400 pages, this one has 240 pages, and they're pre-numbered, so 239, 240, so let me get that out of there. And then the composition book has 100 pages, 200 pages. It's 100 sheets, and then both sides, so it's 200 pages. So in terms of size, Moleskine comes in first. Fits in my purse, so here's the deal. This composition book fits in one bag that I have that I carry around on a daily basis, or that I use for the most part. It fits in all my tote bags, but it does not fit in my smaller purses. And I'm getting to a point where I don't necessarily need to carry a backpack or a tote bag around with me anymore. But I do, because I carry my planner with me everywhere. So I don't love that it's too big to fit in a majority of my purses, okay? And then clearly, you know, the Exceed is smaller, but in terms of just, you know, size, this one, the Moleskine, is the smallest. It measures 5 inches across and about 8.5 up and down. This one is about 5.5 by 8.5. And then this one is, I believe it's 7 by 9.5. Oops. This one is, yep, 7 by 9.5. So in terms of size, the Moleskine fits in my purse the best, and then the Exceed, and then the composition book. So far the composition book isn't coming in very well. And in the past, I have used weighted numbers, because gosh, I'm a nerd. And I would say, okay, the numbered pages being pre-numbered is not that big a deal to me, so that would be weighted less than, say, if it fits in my purse, and I would weigh everything. I'm not going through all that BS right now. I'm just going strictly on ranking. So, page size, well, clearly the composition book wins that contest because it has the biggest sized pages, and then the Exceed, and the Moleskine. Page thickness, okay, now that's something that journals really vary quite a bit on, especially when you get into the more name brand ones. The composition book, I don't know the exact paper, weight of the paper, but it's pretty thin. I mean, you can tell by looking at it and feeling it, it's pretty thin. And there is ghosting. It's not terrible, but it exists. It's not horrible, but it's there. The Exceed, this is 100 GSM paper. So what that means is it's much thicker than the composition book. This is probably a 20 weight paper. This would be like a 100 weight paper. So I don't know exactly. I think what it has something to do with if you had a ream. If you had a ream, which would be 200 sheets of this paper, it would weigh less than 100 sheets of this paper because this paper is thicker. Something like that. Don't quote me. Clearly I don't know what I'm talking about in that respect. But I do know this paper is much thicker. I mean, it's more substantial. You can just, by feeling, I mean, a video doesn't do it justice, but you can tell this paper is much, much thicker. And I find a page, let's see if I can find a page that has, as you can see, I've already done a few layouts. So this is marker. It's Crayola Super Tip, and you can't hardly see it at all. There is a little, very faint ghosting, but I mean, I think that's pretty minimal. There's no bleeding. I've only had a couple things bleed through on this kind of paper. And then the Moleskine, I believe this is 72 GSM, so it's thinner than the Exceed brand, but it's thicker than the composition book. So in here, like I said, I used this about a year ago, so you can see I've got black ink, and when I turn it over, there's no bleeding at all. And then there's a little bit of ghosting. Like I've got this dark washi tape, and you can see it, but there's no bleeding at all. Some pages, there might be a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, if you look at the pages that are a little more blank, let's see if I can find a page that's like here. I mean, the page before has black and different, marker and different things, and you can't really see it. So this paper is a little thicker than the composition book, but less so than the Exceed. So let's rank that. The composition book, the Exceed, and the Moleskine. Okay. Now, do they lay flat? So that's where this one can be a little annoying because it's thick. You can see how thick that is. When you lay it out, the first few times, until you get further into the book, when you go to write, this part goes down when you're writing. So what I've done in the past is I would put a book underneath it so that I could write on it and it wouldn't dip, because of the height. But then as you get further in the book, so now say we're in the middle, now it lays flat. And then towards the end I would probably do the same again, like put a book underneath or something. And that's kind of a pain. I don't love that. But once it's open, it does lay flat. This book, it lays flat always. So like, even if I didn't have a book under here, because it has a hardcover, I can still write on it and it doesn't dip because of the width of the book. So that I do like. And when it's open, you know, it lays flat. Now it's coming up a little bit because I haven't gotten to these pages yet, but, you know, that lays flat. Composition book, it does lay flat when you're in the middle. So this is, you know, kind of in the middle. Let's see, I think this is the literal middle, okay? That lays flat, but because it's sewn all the way through all the pages, and this is sewn into signatures, so there's a chunk, you know, this chunk is sewn, and then the next chunk is sewn, so that that's what makes it lay flat. Because this is sewn in one big signature, when you're in the very front of the book, there's a bump here that sometimes will make your stickers curl up a little bit on the edge. So you can't start your book in the middle, you have to move it out a little bit. Okay? And then same goes at the end. But the problem at the end is that you haven't used these pages yet, so they're still new and kind of stiff. And so when you go to write, this is always coming up, so you have to hold it down while you write. That's not that big of a deal. And if I were weighting these, like I have done in the past, I probably wouldn't weight that as that big of a deal. But I mean, it's still a thing that happens. You've still got this bump here, right? So the reason that I like it to lay flatter is because, for instance, in this book, some of my layouts, let's see if I can find a monthly. Someday I'll do a flip through of this one, because I do really like it. I can actually use the middle, and it lays flat enough that I can write on it, and it doesn't get in the way. So I can actually use the full space, rather than trying to cram, you know, half the month here and then the other half here. So that's why laying flat, you know, is important to me. But let's say the Exceed is the flattest, and then the Moleskine, and then the composition book. So even though I do love using composition book, it's not coming in very well. Let's see how we do further down. Aesthetics. To me, that is the way the book feels in your hand, you know, the way it moves, the way the pages flip, the way the pages look. You know, when I do a layout, do I like it? Do I kind of go, you know? That's what aesthetics means to me. This one's okay. It's not very full yet, because obviously I'm trying to decide which book to use. I do like, you know, that I can flip the pages. I do like the way the layouts look. I love that the dots blend into the background and almost disappear. And I do like, my kitties, you know, I like the way the layouts look. I don't have, let's see, I do have a weekly. Here's my October monthly. So I do like, you know, how that looks. And here's a weekly. I do like how it looks. But I really like the feel of this paper, and I like the way the layouts, they just, for some reason the layouts here I like a little bit better. Just the way they work. This book, I do like my layouts in this book. I wouldn't have used it if I didn't. But there's so much white space now. So like I said before, when I was using these, you know, I had tons of kids. I still do, but I mean, that live at home. Lots of activities. I was working, my husband was working, and even in the last few years since he's been gone, I feel like we've just had more going on. So these days were fuller. Now I feel like I have so much just empty space. Like, just lots of empty space. I mean, some are more than others. But I don't know, I just feel like it makes it feel kind of, I don't know. It's almost like I'm trying too hard, I'm not sure. This one was very full because I had a lot going on that week. But then this week, I did this week's layout, and it's, I mean, there's nothing there, hardly, it seems like. I had to add stickers to just fill up some space. So I don't know, that's one thing I don't like about this. And the lines For some reason the lines on, or the grid on this notebook are less busy to me than the ones on this. So I don't know if you can see, I don't know if it's the color of the paper or the color of the lines. I don't know. Anyway, and I do like the paper color, partly because when I use whiteout, it's not as obvious on this paper, whereas on the white paper, let's see if I can find some whiteout. See, it's very, very obvious. So that's another part of the aesthetic that I don't love. So we're going to rank the aesthetics, 3 for the Moleskine, 2 for the Exceed, and 1 for the composition book. I do like the way my layouts look in the composition book. I really, really do. And I like that I can use lots of stickers and washi and all of that stuff. But it can also be intimidating in that I feel like I have to use those things just to fill in the space. Stickers fit, okay? What that means is, can I fit every kind of sticker that I use in that notebook, okay? So in the composition book, clearly the size means I can use pretty much any size of sticker that I want. I can use washi tape, I can use wide stickers, I can use narrow stickers. You know, there's lots of space. That is one advantage. I can use all of my different kinds of stickers. In the Moleskine, it depends on the layout. If I do a layout like this where my weekend is stacked, I can fit the same size stickers as I use in here because it's the same number of squares. This is 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're the same width. So if I do that kind of layout in here, then yes, I can use all of my stickers. If I do a skinnier layout, which I think there's one in here that I did a thinner, where I do the same layout as I use in my composition book with the to-do list on the side and across, you can see the columns are way skinnier. So if I do use a bigger sticker, it has to go over 2 different columns. So I can technically use all of my stickers in here, but it just takes up more space. So, and then in the composition, or in the Exceed journal, if I do this kind of layout, same as here, this one has 8 squares across. This one is 7 squares across, and this one is 6 squares across. So as I go, each layout gets a little bit smaller. But the stickers that I have in here fit perfectly. So that's just a matter of, can I use all of my stickers or not? So I'm going to say in the composition book, yes, I can use all my stickers. In the Exceed, you know, again, I can, and then in the Moleskine, I can, but it's just, I have to use less, I guess. Dots, I prefer the dots, so that this Exceed is going to get the 3 on that. Composition book, I prefer the graph in here than I do in here. Price, composition book clearly wins that category because I buy these every year. They're 50 cents. I get 4 or 5, maybe 6 at a time. They're super cheap, and I can do whatever I want with them. And because of that, I feel like I can do whatever I want, and it doesn't ruin or waste any money because it's so cheap. The Exceed notebook, you know, it's a nice hardcover book. I think I bought this one for $8.82 maybe a year ago. So they've probably gone up in price since then, but almost, we'll say $9, okay? And then this one, I also bought for $9 on sale. So I wouldn't pay full price for a planner if I didn't have to, or if it was a relatively cheap. So like this one, this I paid full price for, but it was only $9 compared to a Leuchtturm or some of the other, like a Stalogy or whatever. That's pretty cheap. This one was also $9, but the difference for me is that I get almost twice as many pages in here than I get in here. So that for me makes it worth more. So in terms of price, obviously the composition book is the cheapest, but in terms of how much I can get out of it, the Moleskine wins that one, and the Exceed is next. Sorry. 2, 1. Okay. Storage. Now that means is there storage in here. So in each of these there's a back pocket. This one is going to be slightly smaller than this one, but they both have pockets. This one does not have pockets, but I have made pockets for them before. I just tape one in the back, or an envelope or whatever. So technically they all do have storage, but I would say the Exceed has the most, and then the Moleskine, and then the composition book, since I have to make that. Do they have a closure? Yes, each of these has a closure. These two have elastic. The downside is that the elastic, it wears out after a while and gets overstretched. This one does not have a closure, but I could make one if I wanted. But this one, because it gets thick, this they make this closure a little tighter than I think they do on these books. I don't know. I feel like these last a little longer. So we're going to do a 3 for the Moleskine, and then a 2 for that, and then a 1 for the composition book. The paper feel. Now that might not seem like that big of a deal, and that kind of also still goes in the aesthetic category. But I really, really like the way this paper feels. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. It's relatively smooth, like it's not rough, like sometimes you can feel the drag on paper. It's fairly smooth. I like the way it feels when it has writing on it and stickers. Like it gets a little crinkly, but it's still, you know, it still holds its shape well. This book, the paper is nice and thick, so it's nice in that you can draw or color or write or whatever, and it doesn't bleed through hardly at all. There's very little ghosting, so I do like that. So I can do a layout on one page, and then on the next blank page, like you can hardly even see it. But the downside of that is that the paper is very thick, and I feel like I don't know, it feels like I'm writing on cardstock sometimes, and I don't love that, because the paper doesn't get that kind of crinkly used, kind of, you know, worn in feel. I know that seems weird. I don't know, maybe it is weird, but I do prefer the paper in the Moleskine as opposed to the Exceed. And then in the composition book, the paper definitely gets that, you know, crinkly used feel, but it is very thin. It's smooth. It doesn't feel as smooth as the Moleskine paper, but it is smooth. And I do like that I can, you know, lick my fingers, kind of flip the pages, like, you know, flip the pages like that. That's nice. But because it's thinner, it just feels less substantial. And it's still pretty floppy even with a cover on it. So I do prefer the Moleskine paper, which you'd think I would prefer the thicker paper, but for me, I have a lot of sensory stuff going with my ADHD, and the paper in the Moleskine just feels the best to me. Tip-ins, okay, so that's, can I glue things in my book? Can I fit things in there if I want to put in like a schedule or a list, you know, or like, I got some water damage, like a airplane ticket or anything like that. Obviously the clear winner there is going to be the composition book, because I can put in almost a full-size sheet of paper. Like I have a school schedule here, and I can fold a paper in half and stick it in, or I can cut the, you know, trim off and stick the whole page in there. I can put in papers that tip in, you know, I can glue all kinds of stuff in here. The downside of doing that, though, of putting a lot of stuff in here, is that the paper is so thin that when I write on the next page, I can feel where the edge of that thing is. Okay, so there's that. In the Exceed notebook, it's almost exactly the size of a folded in half piece of paper. So if I have, let's see if I can find a piece of paper. I have a sheet of paper and I fold it in half, and then I open my book. I mean, it almost fits exactly. I may have to trim a little edge off, but I can stick that in there, I can tape it in, and then if I need to open it up, you know, to get to the page, I can do that. This clearly is going to be even smaller. It's not as easy to tape or glue pages in here. I do still, like I think there was a page back here where I had, I don't know, like I glued in a map that I found on the internet. So you can, you know, it's possible. It's just there's not a lot of room. Like this is just scrapbook paper that I stuck in there. And it bulks up a lot faster because it's thicker. So in that case, the composition book is the clear winner, and then the Exceed, and then the Moleskine. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, I'm going to move out of my composition book because a lot of the things that matter to me now, in terms of if it lays flat, you know, the aesthetic appeal, all that kind of stuff, those things, you know, are important to me. More so now than it used to be when I first started doing composition journal, or paper, you know, planning, DIY planning, bullet journaling, whatever you want to call it. I used to need as much space as possible, and it needed to be cheap because I was low on funds and big on kids and activities. But now that I'm a little older, my kids are older, we have fewer activities, I have more disposable income, you know, I can put a little bit more attention into the way it looks and how it feels and that kind of stuff. So let me add these together real quick and we'll see what we come up with. Okay. Wouldn't you know it, it's a tie between the Moleskine and the Exceed. So in that case, I need to decide what my tiebreaker should be. So in this situation, gosh, what do you guys think? I like the harder cover. I like, you know, the size of the pages, but I much prefer the paper and the feel and the aesthetics of this book. And it will last me forever. And a lot of people might wonder what I do with all this extra paper at the end. Sometimes I take it out and I cut it out and I use it in other projects. Sometimes I just leave the book as it is and use it for practice layouts. Sometimes I use it for just journaling. I don't journal as much as I would like to, so I'm trying to get back into it. So I might, you know, label this, whatever the dates are. I think it was January or February through August of 2023, and then journal from, you know, 2024 to whatever. But I do have a new one of these coming, because I got it even cheaper than $9 on sale. And so I do think I will use this one when it comes. I'm not giving up on my composition book, and I'll probably use this one for something else. I did start filling it up a little bit, but that was more because I was just trying to decide between the three. But with my composition book, I'd like to get into more art journaling. I do make junk journals, and I do find it very therapeutic, but part of the reason I haven't been doing it lately is because my basement has been a chaotic mess because we had water damage and flooding and power going out and all different things, and my craft area really, really, really needs to be organized and set up. So I've been doing all of my artistic endeavors kind of in my planner, and I've just been reading. You know, I'm kind of bored, so I want to get back into junk journaling, and composition books are perfect for that. So I haven't completely given up on them, and I will still probably eventually go back to it as a planner. Maybe someday when I have a job and more things to keep track of. But for now, we're moving out of her and we're moving into her. The new one that should be here today. So maybe next video I'll do a flip through of this. And then I'll show you how I'm setting up the next one. Here is a layout that I did for this week though. And this is so, again, I'm kind of a nerd. I did the same layout in all 3 books because I really wanted to get an idea of what I thought. You know, I'm trying to be scientific and, you know, why can't I find it? I'm trying to be smart about it. I don't want to just waste my money. What the heck? Where'd my layout go? Oh, it's up here. Okay, so I'm trying not to be wasteful. So I thought a good idea would be to go through and do a layout in each one. So here's the layout in my composition book, and they're all different. This one I was just using some random stickers I had. Sorry about the light. Some washi tape, some just little diary stickers I found on, I don't know, Amazon probably. Just some little boxes that I had. This one, I used a sticker kit that I just got, that I featured in another video from Agenda 52. And I'm not done yet. I haven't done the weekend yet because we haven't got there yet. And then this is this week's layout in this book. Now clearly this one seems busier. I mean, look at the difference between that one and this one. But I wrote all the same notes. I wrote all the same to-do list. This layout is the same width as this one, as the composition book. So the columns are the same width. The only difference is they're shorter. So where this is about equal to that, so it's just condensed a little bit. And the weekend is stacked instead of side by side. But that's the only difference between these 3 layouts. This one is the same exact layout. The weekend is side by side, but it's 1 square shorter or narrower in each column. So, I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me by looking at this what you think. Anyway, such indecision, but, you know, based on this, it's clear that the composition book is no longer serving my needs or my preferences. And, you know, these 2 are a tie, so I feel confident in moving into either one of these. But in this case, I just like the feel and the look and the aesthetics of this one. So come back next time and we'll see what she looks like filled up. Have a good week.